What's up, everybody? My name's Estics, and this is the channel that I built with my bare hands. Today we're going to be talking about how to build your first commander deck. So what is a commander deck? Well, a commander deck is a Magic the Gathering format of 100 cards with one card being your commander. Let's break it down into little chunks and go over how to build your first commander deck. This isn't going to be a commander deck for someone who's doing maybe competitive sort of things. This is more of a regular how to build your first commander and understand the game commander. Whenever you're looking for your first commander, you want to think about not if I want to build around the commander itself because of the ability that it holds, but you want to be thinking, is the deck that I'm going to build going to be useless or useful with my commander? Because if my commander is not on the battlefield and my deck is useless, then you have a big problem. You want to be able to play your deck without having your commander on the battlefield. The commander is supposed to be something that you summon to boost your whole field up. So building around an idea of a commander versus building around a specific commander ability is probably the strongest way to build a commander deck. Whenever building a commander deck, you want to take in consideration what colors your commander is and what lands you need to run. Usually a general 34 to 38 land cards will suffice, but you want to also think about what ramp cards you want to use, because if you're running maybe a red deck, you want to maybe use colorless artifacts to usually get ahead of your opponent, or if you're running green, you want to use spell-like artifacts to get ahead of your opponent. So either way you go about it, you want to think about how many ramp cards do I need to play versus how many lands I need to play, because if you're playing something like a landfall deck, you want to have more lands in your commander deck. Whenever building a commander deck, you want to have around 5 to 8 removal cards, and these removal cards should be based on if your deck is weak against enchantments or anything like that, and you want to build around basically if your commander is weak against a certain type of thing. Like if you want to get through creatures, you should probably remove creatures. So creature removal will probably be something that you would run in a deck that maybe needs to get through something or can't and has a bunch of chump blockers. Most of the cards that you want to run, you need to run around your commander's weakness, because if you don't run around your commander's weakness, then it ends up being that you have a bunch of removal cards that you maybe don't need or maybe don't understand why you're running them. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into our example commander is synergies. Synergies are really important for a deck so that you can keep up with other people throughout the game. Combos are good too. Combos and synergies are kind of different. Whenever you use the synergy, it'll help over time, and it kind of like it gives you stuff, and they kind of work off of other cards that you need. Combos work together in tandem to make a giant ability happen or something like that, you know. And it's kind of schematic, but it's whatever. Stuff that you want to take into consideration is, does your commander want to have creatures? Does your commander focus on artifacts or enchantments or whatever? And then you want to use synergies based around that. So usually things like tokens want to rely on enchantments to double up on each ability that they have. A lot of creatures that focus on attacking maybe want enchantments. They want to gain like flying or trample or haste or anything like that just to get through. A good rule of thumb to be thinking about is whenever you're building a commander, you want to build things that do almost the exact thing that your commander does, so that other creatures can be benefiting off of your synergies and everything that you have going, and the multiple synergies that you can run multiple of. So like you can have like 1 or 2 different combo doublers, and as long as they have 2 different names, you can keep one for now and keep one for later, just in case your opponent has removal cards or anything. It's really about if your commander needs a certain type of removal or needs a certain type of boost. Usually things that focus on creatures are like tribal decks or token decks. Another thing, instant and sorceries can be brought back or doubled up in the graveyard through some enchantments, or you can use things like Sunbird's Approach to like get other things out of your library without actually summoning them from your library. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So today we're going to be talking about Imodain the Pyro Hammer. Imodain the Pyro Hammer is a really strong card that I've been wanting to talk about in a commander deck, but I think that she would fit perfectly right here because there's many different ways to build her, but I have one way that I want to show you that fits perfectly with this theme. So Imodain to rely on spells that burn from your hand. So whenever you cast them, you hit a creature That could be a removal spell, by the way. A burn spell could be a removal spell for smaller creatures, maybe Manadorks or something early on, or maybe something like an Ornithopter that can get crazy with artifacts. But anyway, you want to run burn spells and stuff with this deck. So I recommend things that maybe have suspend, so that you could set up ahead of time and then not have to worry about casting them and have big explosive turns later on. I'll get to that. So burn spells are going to be a big part of your synergy. You might want to run like 10 or 15 of those for Immodane, just to have close by and ready to go. Some early game spells and some late game ones. So not all, if you run 15, don't run 15 one drops or anything like that. Run like 5 big ones and 10 small ones or something. Usually I like to run big ones, but they have a cost to them. Maybe like Shivering Meteorite, I get a suspend 2, but I get to only pay 3. So it's an early one, but I don't get it for 2 turns. That gives me enough time to set up my synergies. Now, something that I love to do with synergies in this deck is I like to use lifelink. And the reason why is commander weakness. My commander's weakness is healing. I don't have like any access to healing because of red, and that's something that you want to focus on with your synergies. So something that I have used is a artifact build Voltron deck based around kind of sub theme to it. And don't get lost in sub themes, but the sub theme is definitely something that you can focus on a little bit to make your game plan really stand out and to take back a weakness you maybe had. So I use things like Luxodon Warhammer or Batterbone to give my commander or other creatures that I use with synergy, and I get things out of them to use later on. So if I have it attached to my commander, for example, I will use a shock or something. I will do damage, and then I will gain life equal to the amount of damage that I dealt, because Immodane does damage to a player whenever I hit a creature with a spell that only targets it. And then that will gain me life, which will keep me in the game a little bit longer so that I can withstand getting actual more burn spells out of my deck and onto the battlefield. Another synergy that you maybe want to check out is like what I talked about earlier with tokens is doublers. Something that I like to use with this is burn doublers. Burn doublers definitely are good, like good for this deck. My favorite one is Soflum, the Dominus from Phyrexia. She's a really sweet double damage doubler. She gains indestructible, and whenever you use her, you can hit, and then it just gives you a bunch of value, and then you get to heal for even more value at the end of the combo, which is usually super awesome, especially with Immodane. I also like to run creatures that don't really think you would think fit the bill for this deck, like Krinko. I run my Krinko, I think it's King of 10th Street, or yeah, something like that. But whenever he attacks, he gives you goblins, and then I like to use those goblins if my like opponent doesn't have any creatures for me to attack. I can use big spells on them and basically just sack them for free damage for my opponent, which is really great. Something that I really like to do is I like to use Krinko in addition to having a Zada Hedron Grinder, which will, as soon as you attack her with any sort of spell, all other creatures also get that too. So let's say I hit her with a 1-drop burn spell or something, it'll do 2 damage to her, and it'll do 2 damage to each creature that I have on the battlefield. Because it copies it for each other creature that I have. And then all that damage, if I have my commander out, will not only hit all of my creatures, but also hit, boom, my opponent and kill. Instead of using burn as a concept for my commander and only having a commander that focuses on burn, my whole deck relies on burning people. So the concept of burn boosts my entire deck instead of just boosting my commander. So that's basically where it boils down to, is having a commander that wants to boost things for itself and for its abilities can be really weakened if you don't have a good deck to back up those abilities. So I always recommend having stuff that will keep your deck from losing casting whenever the commander is not on the battlefield. That's all I wanted to say. So hopefully that this helped you out a little bit. I know it wasn't a full commander deck build, but it was just some information that I wanted to relay to you on how I built my commander and how maybe it might help you build your commander. Now, if you want to see anything of my extra commander decks, check out this video over here. And thank you for watching, and happy castings.